right, y'all. So we are back. Okay. So this time I am so interested in talking to y'all about starting over in general and how scary that sometimes can be, but how honestly essential it is on your journey in this life, right? If you really feel like you are being called to start over, to try something new, to get out of your hometown, out of your comfort zone, please do it. Let's just start there. Just do it. Figure out a way to lean on your spiritual source and get it done. We're just gonna start right there. So starting over. So I moved to Detroit, Michigan on whim, on God's whim, not just a whim, on God's whim, August 25th, 2024. Okay. I didn't know anyone here. I just, woke up. Detroit was on my heart. I was clearly on Detroit's heart. We here. I have now lived here for over a year, and it's one of the best decisions I ever made for so many reasons. Physically, mentally, spiritually, financially, I am 1,000% better off than I was when I was living in Texas. When I had a support system, my parents live in Texas. I have friends in Texas. I went to college in Texas. So I knew a little bit of razzle dazzle of this person, that person, you know what I'm saying? So it made no sense for me to want to uproot my life and move to a place where I knew no one. But again, this is not my first time doing this. I did this, but I did it for grad school when I moved to DC for going to grad school at Georgetown University. That's a totally different situation. You got a reason to do that. I had no reason to do this. Now, starting over is daunting. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to sit up here and act like it's one of the easiest things to do. I'm not going to sit up here and act like everything is going to be roses and champagne, because it's just not. But I will say I want to share with you all some key steps that I think are so essential in your start over journey, right? So I always think about jobs, and it's like, the optimal question for a job interview is, what is expected of me in the first 30, 60, 90, right? And as you're game planning how you're going to make this happen, think about what your expectations of yourself are for the first 30, 60, 90, of your apartment, of your this, of your that. Like, what are your real expectations, right? So for me, in the first 30 days, I knew I wanted to have my home together. I wanted my apartment to look a certain way. I wanted to have it decorated. I wanted to feel like I could, cook, clean, enjoy, and relax and enjoy my rent, right? That was my main thing for my first 30 days. I wanted to feel at home and at peace. I also wanted to invite God into my home. When my parents were here, because my parents did come up with me when I first moved to Detroit, they got on the plane with me. We experienced all the ups and downs together of moving into a new apartment sight unseen. And, they prayed over my home. They prayed over my home. I prayed over my home. God knew my heart was deep into making this work. So that's the other thing, is like, what do you need to do spiritually to make sure that you're at peace in your home? Because peace doesn't just start in the physical, it starts in the spiritual. So what do you need to do to make that happen? So praying over my home, I really was deep into a gratitude practice where I was gratitude journaling every night. I also was in therapy during this time. So I knew that I was going to be alone. So I started therapy. So those were my 30 days. Olivia is expected to do this so that I can have a successful 60 days. In 60 days, my whole thing was like, I need to start getting out of the house. To do that, I just started exploring, whether it was local coffee shops. I had a series on Instagram where I was always like, I'm back in somebody's coffee shop today, because I was always in somebody's coffee shop, right? And the same thing with like starting a solo alphabet date series, which is also on my Instagram and TikTok. Like, I knew I wanted to get out of the house, and I knew I wasn't going to have people to get out of the house with. And I loved the idea of alphabet dates, and I never had a boo to do an alphabet date with. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it for myself. And alphabet dates are where you find something for A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So like A, you go to the aquarium. B, you go to a bourbon tasting. C, you go to a candle making, that kind of thing. And it was so enjoyable. I just finished that series. That series took me 6 months. And I started that series in April of last year. Of last year. What year are we in? Last year. Last year? Was it last year? No. April of last year. Girl, y'all, I don't do math. You see what I'm saying? Sometimes my logic don't logic. I started that series April of this year. I just finished it in October of this year, right? So I set myself up for success in those 60 days to make sure that I had things to look forward to, things that I was proud of. And y'all, these blinds are about to get on my nerves, but we just gonna make it shake. So that was my 30 days, my 60 days. So I grounded myself. I found ways to get out of the house and enjoy myself. And then my 90-day goal was to have at least one person that I felt like I could call friend. Now, friend is a dangerous word. It's a dangerous word because friend comes with expectation. Friends come with care. Friend comes with things like, honestly, I'm not calling nobody my friend unless I think you could be my kid's auntie. That's my new recommendation. That's my new definition of friend. If I don't feel like you can actually be my child's auntie, I'm not calling you my friend. So I should have been saying I wanted an associate, but at the time I was very interested in having friends, right? Because my definition of friend was just somebody that was surface level, that you go to happy hour with, that you do this, that, and the fourth. But that was my 90-day thing. And did I make a friend in the 90 days? Yes, I did. Am I still friends with that person? No. But at the end of the day, it was good to get myself out there. I started creating social media content. That was my way of having creative expression. I at first did not intend for it to be a content creator, right? All I wanted was a place to dump my feelings and thoughts and things I was experiencing in this new city in a way that I could share it with the public in case somebody else needed some help, but also in a way that I could reflect back on it, right? But it's like you're failing publicly or you're growing publicly. And failure and growth go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other, right? So it was very much intentional for me that it was going to be something for my mental health. I started often solo for my mental health. At first it was called Solo in the D, because I knew, one, I was going to be here alone. I knew I was going to be doing a lot of things alone until further notice, and still am doing a lot of things alone because I pride myself in being able to enjoy my own company. And then on top of that, I really wanted to be able to go back and look back. I always tell people, I knew at some point I was going to question why. And I was probably going to be in the middle of a mental breakdown as I was questioning why. And I wanted to look back on that page and go, you've done 378 activities in this city that you would have never been able to do in Texas because you had the support system. Yes, you had the quote unquote friends and all the things, but you just didn't have the drive to get out and do it. But you have that here because it's different. You had to step out or you knew you were going to, not get to where you wanted to get to. So that was my 30, 60, 90-day plan. And I feel like if you have a 30, 60, 90-day plan for your move, that is essential to you having a start over. You cannot start over without a plan. Now, we plan and God, laughs, right? People say that. The old heads love to say that. And I 100% agree, because we can say we want this, but if it's not in alignment with what God wants for you, it'll never be right. And that's just facts. But it is still good to sit there and notate it out. Always write your plans out. I believe it says it in the Bible that to write it, right? Write and ask, right? So you got to do both. However, just know that it is okay if your plans don't work. It's okay if you don't make that friends in the 90 days. It's okay if you don't get out of the house in the first 60 just because you're still building furniture. Like, it is okay to have delays, quote unquote, because everything is always working for your good. Everything is always contributing to your success. So there's no reason to feel ashamed of not hitting your 30, 60, 90, but it's just good to have something, because if you do hit it, boom, you have something to celebrate. If you don't hit it, you have something to reevaluate, right? But if you just go into it and you go, I'm just going to move to this new city and I'm just going to sit in the house, like, I'm not really going to have a plan, I'm not really going to do anything. Yeah, you'll be a year in and not have anything to show for moving and not have anything to show for starting over. So that is really what I want to say about like starting over. It is so essential to have a plan. Think of it as your new job, to have that 30, 60, 90, to benchmark and evaluate yourself and see where you stand so that you can make sure that you are making yourself proud, whether it is because you are quote unquote failing. I don't even like the word, but you are learning as you're failing. And that means you're growing. And that's all we want in these situations. Or you're quote unquote hitting all your benchmarks and you're also growing because you're getting out and doing what you need to do to make yourself proud, right? Either way, you should be proud of yourself, because starting over is hard. And honestly, 95% of the population ain't doing it. And I love to tell people I'm on like my third or fourth life at this point. Like, I have done so many things in this life. I'm so grateful to God for all the opportunities that he's given me to do so many things in this life. And it is just such a blessing to be able to look back and see how all of the things that you've experienced becomes character development for your next chapters. Saying all this to say, you can do this. I'm just going to always end on, you got this. You could do this. If I could do it, if me, who had little to no money when I did all of this, I don't come from a financially rich family. I come from a supportive and loving family that were willing to help me with whatever I needed to in their means, right? And I was very grateful. I do work a corporate job. I work from home. So yes, I have a lot of privilege in those senses. However, this is all the grace of God. And you being able to start over you're going to have that foundation. This is why I'm doing it. This is how I'm doing it. You're going to have that 30, 60, 90. And the next time we'll talk about something else. But make sure that you know that deep down, whatever you want, whatever you desire, your spiritual source desires that for you too. And you got to move with intention. And that starts with planning. And I know some people are type B, but that's okay. This is going to help you to have something to look forward to. And until next time, we'll figure out something else to chat about. I'm just really excited about this series because I know I looked up so many people on YouTube when I was thinking about moving and just trying to figure it out. And even just videos about like, where am I supposed to be at 32? Where am I supposed to be at 31? Like, where am I, we're all searching for answers. And as we share these things with each other, we're really helping to just take care of each other and nurture each other and make sure we're good. So until next time, when we chat again, just know you got this and you can 100% move and do what you need to do for you anytime you need to do it.